Hi, folks. This is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, I know in other reports I've talked about just go and discover fishing for yourself. What's fun for you, and that's why so many people like different types of fishing. I know I've talked about my buddy Mike Bean. He's not interested in fishing for perch. They're a panfish. Some of you out there, that's your favorite way to fish. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to go for crappies. And I said to him one day, do you like fishing bluegills? Well, not so much. And Mike is a phenomenal fisherman. But my point is that there's so many different ways to do things. And sometimes I think we become burdened by too many instructions and too many ways. It's no fun anymore. Well, I'm going to depart from that, and I'm going to give you some other things that I think are important to know. And right now, one of the big things out on the market are tungsten jigs, tungsten jig heads. And most of you listening probably aren't even aware what I'm talking about, because through my whole life, any jig head, anything weight, whether it's a sinker or a jig head, whatever, were made of lead. And the lead was pretty soft, and you could take pliers, or even when I was young, I used to use my teeth to bite the sinkers down so they would stay on the line. But now we know that lead is very dangerous. It's very dangerous to wildlife, and especially in the wetland areas where there'd be lead that's left there from either shotgun shells or the bullets and so forth, or the sinkers and the lures that we use that we snag up on the bottom and we start putting lead in the water. So tungsten is what is an alternative to this. It's safe. It isn't polluting. It's more expensive. But what are some of the other advantages to buying these tungsten jigs? Because it's what you see now on the market, and you say, wow, those things are a lot more expensive. But supposedly, they're a lot better. So how are they better? Well, for one thing, they're metal. And so whenever you have metal, sound and vibration is going to travel through that much better than it would something like soft lead. And so what people say is that if they're using these jigs and they're fishing slowly on the bottom, and when you're fishing for walleyes or even smallmouth bass a lot of times, your strike will be just them sucking that into their mouth. And when they do that, you can feel it as a little tap. But if you've cast out a long ways and you're using, for example, monofilament line, and you don't have a great graphite rod, then all the means of delivering this message through the medium that you're using is diluted. But if you've got a tungsten jig and they just pick that up, you're going to feel much more observable tap on the end of the line. It's going to tell you you've got a strike. And that can be a big deal. It may sound like, wow, I'm really stretching it, but I'm not. So that's one of the advantages. The other thing is these new jigs are made in different shapes, and every different shape of a jig head or a lure is going to go through the water differently. So whatever you attach to that jig, whatever soft plastic you use, it's going to look differently to the fish. It's going to fall through the water differently. It's going to swim back to you differently depending on the shape of that jig head. Even the way the angles of the hook on the jig head are made, or even the way the nose of that jig head may be tapered, that's going to give it a different look in the water. So, and finally, when they first started making these tungsten jig heads, a lot of times, or the tungsten sinkers and the worm weights that slide up and down your line, well, they'd become sharp at some point and they would fray your line. Now these tungsten weights are much, much better. So do you need to go out and buy them? For the very least reason is it's less polluting to our environment. But for the biggest and maybe the most important reason is they're a better tool to use. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meisner with the North Country Fishing Report.